Greetings. In the last episode related how Richard Grenville returned to Roanoke Island to find the colony deserted as Sir Walter Raleigh had rescued the beleaguered settlers some days before Grenville arrived with fresh supplies. This episode is the conclusion of the tale of Roanoke Island. Before getting started, I would encourage you to subscribe to the Mossy Feet Books YouTube channel for more great content. I also entreat you to visit my website, www.mossyfeetbooks.com. There you will find sample chapters, podcasts, a slew of content, and links to where you can buy my books. While visiting the website, you can subscribe to it and receive email notifications of when I publish a new book or publish other content like this video and podcast. This episode is based on my book, Colonial American History Stories 1215 through 1664. It is the first book in my 6-book Timeline of United States History series. You can find my books locally at the Walnut Street Variety Shop in Batesville, Indiana. After Grenville returned to England, Sir Walter Raleigh began preparations for another attempt. He appointed a man named John White to lead the expedition. Little is known of White's life prior to this other than that he was an accomplished artist and that he and Raleigh had become friends. This expedition would differ from the first one in that it would include families, as Raleigh's goal was to establish, quote, a city of Raleigh, on the unquote, on the mainland of Chesapeake Bay. Explorations in the area had located other sites other than Roanoke Island that was more favorable to settlement. White included his pregnant daughter Eleanor Dare and her husband Ananias in the expedition. The ships used for the expedition were the 120-ton Lion and a flyship. A flyship is a small ship, usually outfitted as a merchant ship. Each prospective settler received a promise of 500 acres of land in the new colony. The ships departed England on April the 27th, 1587. The voyage was a stormy one, and the ships did not arrive off the coast of Virginia until July the 16th. On July 22nd, the expedition stopped at Roanoke Island to check on the men that Grenville had left behind. They found a deserted colony with only the skeleton of one of the men to greet them. Many of the prospective settlers left the ship to mount a search for the men. However, nothing was found. When they attempted to board the ship again, the captain refused to let them on. He maintained that it was late in the season. He didn't want to spend time looking for another site. The colonists had no choice but for the people that remained on the ship to disembark. The captain, a man named Fernandez, had done some pirating, and many suspect that he wanted to spend time raiding before winter. The settlers repaired the remaining buildings and settled in. After the ship left, White contacted some of the local tribes. In the beginning, the relations between the colonists and the natives went well. Upon inquiry, one of the chiefs told White that some of the tribes had killed the men in the colony. The White led an attack on the village that supposedly housed them and attacked in the early morning hours of August the 8th. Too late, the English discovered that the information was false. They had attacked and killed Indians that had been friendly to them. Relations between the colonists and the natives soured after the incident. John White's daughter, Eleanor, delivered a baby girl named Virginia on August 18, 1587. She was the first English child born in North America. By late summer, the colony supplies were running low, and the colony was not where it was supposed to be. They feared that the supply ships from England would not know where they were. They begged John White to return to England for supplies. He reluctantly agreed, and on October the 24th, 1587, White took the flyship and returned to England. His goal was to acquire supplies and return to Roanoke later that year or early the next year. However, the flyship encountered stormy seas, delaying the voyage. They eventually managed to land in Ireland, with many of the crew dying of scurvy in October 1588. White was aghast to learn that tensions had risen to a fever pitch between two competing European powers, France and Spain. England and Spain. In fear of Spanish invasion, Queen Elizabeth had forbidden 80 ships leaving England and anticipating of needing every ship to counter the expected Spanish invasion. The invasion force included in the Spanish Armada would include 130 ships. The next episode will cover this planned invasion of England. Sir Walter Raleigh requested ships to supply the Roanoke colony. However, the Queen denied the request. He did manage to scrounge 2 small pinnacles, which he filled with supplies and sent out. These ships encountered French pirates, which plundered the cargo. White would not be able to mount a resupply mission until March 1590. The supply ships did not reach Roanoke until his granddaughter's 3rd birthday, August 18, 1590. Bad luck hampered the search. A gale struck, which almost grounded the ships. The crew blew bugles to alert the colonists on shore that they had arrived. They managed to land eventually and reached the village. Finding the houses that had been there had torn down and the logs used to construct a palisade. On the right side of the entrance, they found a single word carved, Croatoan. Weeds had overgrown the interior of the palisade and the food had spoiled. The name of a nearby island was Croatoan, and this was the supposed destination of the colonists. The expedition returned to the ship, hopeful of finding the colonists at the island. However, foul weather returned. A foraging expedition to a small island searching for fresh water failed. The men barely made it back to the ships. Gale force winds again almost forced the ships aground. They lost 3 anchors in the fight against the wind and managed only, by luck, to get into deep water, avoiding grounding. Assailed by bad weather and short of water and supplies, the expedition at this point had no choice but to return to England and abandon the search. On October the 24th, 1590, White returned to England, never to see his daughter or his granddaughter again. The mystery of the lost colony endures to this day. In the next episode, I will talk about the Spanish Armada and the Spanish attempt to invade England. The articles in this book contain much more detail about the topics discussed. Additionally, there are other topics not included in the podcast. I encourage you to subscribe to both my website, www.mossyfeetbooks.com, and this YouTube channel. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and thank you for listening.